BlankZ or BlankZ. See, I'm doing it again. I was doing this on the pre-show last night.
We need to know if it's blanks or BlankZ, because that capitalized Z makes me want to say the same thing. BlankZ.
BlankZ, right? The capitalization of it does make it look like it's separate, but also I feel if it was lowercase, it wouldn't look as cool, if that makes sense. There's something about the capitalization that makes it a little bit more I wanted to say strong, defining, but I don't know if that's the correct word I'm looking for. Duck Motif versus BlankZ first thing in the morning, and it is SendouQ finals, you guys, so that means it is Splat Zones only. So Ship Cargo Co. on Splat Zones is where we will be starting off the morning and taking you first. And as a reminder, you have, or actually, not so much a reminder, or if you're new here, but BlankZ, for example, is a SendouQ frequent flyer. They have reached 11th place for the last 2 seasons of the SendouQ finals. They are finding themselves in the 4th seed today among the competition, and we have Duck Motif, who is seated lower than them, although Duck Motif is in my brain, when I think of the NA League, I do think of Duck Motif like a lot higher on the list, because they played in almost every single qualifier week. So you have a Titan of Industry versus the German flavor Titan of Industry. I'm hoping for BlankZ that they can reach a higher placement this time, and especially with the Moonlights and FT Wins of the world not playing this time, in the jackpots, the Voilaktis not playing this time, other than PXG, of course, but hoping that we can see a good rollout here for BlankZ, and hoping for higher, reaching higher heights for BlankZ as we're getting started into the first round. And okay, we're not doing Ship Cargo. That was a lie. We're actually on Barnacle and Dime.
Barnacle and Dime, one of the classic Splat Zones maps in Splatoon 3. And taking a look at these comps as well, we see Duck Motif, actually, they have an E-leader, but then they also have that Stamper, the Tri-Slosher, and that Dually Squelcher paired with that. And then on the other side, BlankZ does have a Junior, that Splatling there, the Tetras, and a Blaster. Very interesting comp to be running, and it looks like it's working out well for them, as we see they are in control of the zone, and they're continuing to hold space in Duck Motif's spawn.
Yeah, you could see Red Shell was about to get started on something with actually playing the Stamper today versus their normal pick of the Octo Brush. So a unique comp change coming out from Duck Motif, not normally what you would see from someone like Red Shell. And BlankZ is cascading down into the last 30 units of the zone capture here. The wave breaker is not going to really cause much havoc, and they're still going to maintain no penalty on the zone. And it seems to me that Duck Motif has not really been able to find the proper footing so far in this match with Rissa.
Yeah, it took them quite some time, as you mentioned. BlankZ got their score all the way down to 22 here. Finally, Duck Motif is able to get control of the zone and give those 60 penalty points over to BlankZ. So now it's going to be Duck Motif's turn to be in control of the zone. We're seeing them take space. We see even the E-leader pushed up, which that's really scary if you are BlankZ and there's an E-leader poking at you in your spawn. That can reach all the way over into your spawn. So slowly, though, members of Duck Motif are having to back up. We're seeing BlankZ here push forward, use that bubbler, get control of the zone pretty quickly along with that.
Yeah, and you could see that Red Shell was opting to try to back off here, but that's going to be Maki reaching around the left-hand side there, kind of trapping Red Shell in the corner. But luckily, our friends are here to make sure that we can reach safety before we go down near the zone area there. That's Caden. Point of view next to the wave breaker, going to be taking the zone back into favor of Duck Motif. It's a very just kind of back and forth story that we're seeing so far. The bubbles for BlankZ are very helpful in trying to establish some ground here, and especially with the cooler now going out, that could be a huge buff for the folks on BlankZ to try to move forward. A very small penalty left in the way for Duck Motif, but that is going to change thanks to the Reef Slider pushing it back into BlankZ's favor.
Reef Slider just really quick, you know, while you have some time, while you're right there and can get control of the zone really quick. So we're seeing a lot of just like minute plays that are really just trying to get the zone quickly, but both teams have really kept a good presence around the zone on each side. So it just seems like it's going back and forth and back and forth. And we look on the left and the right side of the map and see members from each team. They're just really trying to play really kind of chaotically and just make something happen with that chaotic play style. Here, Duck Motif with Red Shell taking the charge, able to push forward and then get space ahead of the zone. The way that Duck Motif plays, if they can just capitalize off of whatever craziness that Red Shell is doing, as long as they pay attention to what Red Shell's doing, they can make something happen, and it seems like they have got that down here starting the day off on this.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you were saying about the E leader pushing forward. Milk Tea was pushed all the way up towards the zone of BlankZ, and so no stone left unturned for the side of Duck Motif, but finally breaking through the defensive wall. That's BlankZ coming back in, but Mr. Boss and Red Shell are still so far pushed up that both the heavy edit and the tetras go down, and there still is so much blue on the screen. It seems to me that BlankZ is having a very hard time trying to find a spot to drop back down and cause something. We are 1-for-1 here in trying to change the lead for Duck Motif, and a little bit of penalty left to go. With less than a minute in the game, this is a very crucial time if you're Duck Motif.
Ooh, Duck Motif here, able to keep the zone control, and then just the way they kind of all just sharked around where the drop is from BlankZ and just made sure they were guarding that. There, we see that Reef Slider come in really quick, paired with that splashdown, tries to gap the zone as best as they can. They at least got there, and you can see the blaster just left there alone, trying to paint. That is not the weapon that you want to be left there, but they had no choice. They were the only remaining member there. The zone was staggered there a little bit, and there was maybe that little bit of a chance that they could cap the zone, but not quite. Duck Motif able to capitalize around that, get control of the zone, and completely KO that first match against BlankZ.
And this, to me, is very signature of Duck Motif. I feel that the opening is not their strong suit. The opening is not where we want to really try to flex our competitive muscles. It's towards the end. It's towards the times of when we are 1 point away from switching the lead that we need to really lock in here. And that is very, very reminiscent of how Duck Motif's play style and how it works. BlankZ had a really incredible opening, but could not see it through to the finish on Barnacle and Dime. So going on to the next round is Crab Lake Capital. This is a map that I believe team number 1 picked. And assuming Alpha Bravo rules, I'm going to assume that this was a pick from Duck Motif. I think Duck Motif is in the alpha side of things. So Duck Motif is the ones to pick Crab Lake Capital as we're moving forward. Both teams picked Barnacle and Dime as the opening stage. And after that, you see Mahi Mahi Resort was picked by BlankZ and so on and so forth. So I guess, Rissa, in your mind's eye with what we saw in those final 30 seconds, what would BlankZ need to do to try to change the outcome and then to maintain consistency throughout the match to find success here on Crab Lake?
Good question. It's really interesting because if you think about Duck Motif and trying to approach them, like if there's an E leader looking at you and you know that they can hit their shots, you're trying for one to avoid that E leader coming out of your spawn that can reach you in your spawn. But also you have to be careful of all the ledges below you because Red Shell is just sharking there waiting to pop that zip caster, waiting to just jump in and get that pick on you. You know, you need to be making sure you stay back, get your specials, and it's almost like you want to not use your specials to push forward to get the zone. You want to use your specials to just clear those little ledges where Red Shell may be sharking, or, you know, someone else on the team may be sharking. It seems like that was their issue. And if they can maybe just make sure they have an eye on Red Shell and not only take him down or just keep an eye on that, I think they might be able to make something happen. Because like you said, they definitely had a strong start in that first match.
But I think that's the thing. Like, Red Shell keeps you on your toes so much that you need to be throwing ink over that wall or off that ledge no matter what. Even if you don't think that they're going to be there, like, they keep you on edge so much that you really have to just be sure.
Yes.
And still, Red Shell will not be switching off of that stamper. They're actually going to just change flavors of the stamper. That is the Oh gosh, I'm still bad with the new brands, Rissa. Yeah, I'm still bad with the new brands, but there's the newest edition of Stamper coming out from Red Shell on Duck Motif, and once again, very similar story that we saw last time on Barnacle and Dime. An incredible opening coming out from BlankZ. The Duck Motif was going to be the first ones to throw the first punch, but BlankZ is going to be here to stay and continuing the story and continuing their monologue on the zone that they have here, even with the Wavebreaker coming out, which has caused quite a bit of disruption against BlankZ, I would say, in the last match that we got to watch them in. But so far, so good for BlankZ, and there is a couple specials on the way.
Yeah, BlankZ already down to about 30 points here. They're holding the zone. They're making sure they stay back a little bit just to give space for that E leader. And then they're doing the best they can to just kind of poke at anyone else from Duck Motif that's trying to come into the zone. They're down to 15 points here. They are not letting Duck Motif get into the zone. We see Kaden here trying to paint up as much as they possibly can. There goes that Wavebreaker as well, but I don't know if they're going to be able to paint the zone. They aren't. They weren't able to paint the zone. Great guarding the zone there from BlankZ that entire time.
Yeah, it would seem that that was a pretty set in stone match before we even got into it. BlankZ seemed to be pretty confident in their storytelling for that one. So a 1-to-1 matchup as it stands currently. So guaranteed for games 3 and 4 coming down the pipeline. Mahi Mahi Resort is next on the docket. Now, I'm wondering, especially with this ledge play that we got to reference earlier, I'm really seeing a lot of potential from Duck Motif and utilizing that to their advantage. It seems like Crab Leg, maybe they just weren't ready for it. It seems like maybe BlankZ got a bit of a head start. Kind of like the gun went off a lot quicker than Duck Motif could realize, and they were kind of when Mario Kart, when you don't do the boost correctly, you kind of just spin out or your engine explodes. That kind of was what happened with Duck Motif at the beginning there, and BlankZ ran it all the way home. So hopefully Mahi Mahi Resort, it gives us a different result looking ahead here. But to me, it seems like if you let things fall to the wayside, BlankZ will take full advantage of it. But if you're looking to try to play the long game, Duck Motif is going to be your toughest opponent and trying to do that with. So I'm hoping to see a very similar story from Duck Motif, maybe maintaining the same composition. Definitely some comfortability here, though, Rissa, with having one of your strongest players switch onto a weapon that they are not. We don't usually see them playing. Obviously, I'm talking about Red Shell here. So I'm wondering what that is going to entail going into our next match.
Yeah, I know that Red Shell likes to play. Obviously, we all know Red Shell as playing the Octobrush, but he's one of those players that'll play all other weapons that can be really jump scary, like the roller or the stamper, like we're seeing today. So yeah, but it's definitely not his strong suit, that Octobrush. I'm wondering maybe if it's good to be paired with the E leader in particular, since this is myself, I think, one of the first times seeing them play with an E leader. I know they probably have in other tournaments as well, but looking at this too, going into this, I think BlankZ also in that second match, I'm going to be able to tell more for sure in this third match, but it seems like they played a lot less aggressively. It almost seemed like they just stayed back and held their ground a little bit more than they did in the first match, and it really worked for them. But as we go into this third match, we'll see if that is going to be a continuation of a play style, or maybe if Duck Motif is able to counter that here heading into this.
Yeah, and I think another important factor for Duck Motif is Milk Tea and or Kai'Sa on that long-range weapon. Normally, under different circumstances, it's Bandit that is playing the long-range weapon and acting as the backline for Duck Motif, but today that is going to be Kai'Sa. And it seems to me that the maintaining of a backline of some sort, whether it is a charger of some kind or even just a longer range blaster, it seems to be super important for the composition of Duck Motif to get things cooking. And so far, BlankZ is taking us down to the 65 mark, but Duck Motif now quickly going to try to flip the script here. But you have a really interesting 1v1s happening on the side over there. Mr. Boss is going to try to maintain just control of the zone until all of the other players get back into the match here. And Benji is looking to try and see if they can get bridge the gap with the blaster that they're using, but not really having enough reach. They do have those point sensors out on the stage. But that is going to be Duck Motif once again switching control of the lead here and still maintaining strong control. Because, I mean, look at that. Feeling confident enough to go in towards the crab tank. The try splashdown is going to be just enough to take Duck Motif 3 members down.
BlankZ doing a great job. They all funneled on that right side. As soon as they had that bubbler ready from the junior, they just used that. The junior drops down, they all rush down, use that bubbler, and then immediately all run through and use the rest of their specials to cap the zone. And the lead is not far off here as they are just about to get the lead. There goes the lead swap. And now it's Duck Motif's turn to drop down and get the zone and see if they can make things happen.
Yeah, and I like Kaden trying to maintain their distance as best as they can, but how are you supposed to do that when Benny is knocking on your front door here? Red Shell is looking to try to clean up the mess, trying to pincer one member off. That's Multi going down, but unfortunately losing another in the process here. Not really looking to find pain, but still trying to take the fight to them. That's 3 members actually focusing their attention on Red Shell, finally taking him down in the Zipcaster form. BlankZ is still holding on to the lead here, with still plenty of time left in the match, and the water level also has now changed, so different topography forces to try to deal with here. Milk Tea taking one down with the crab tank, looking to try to find another, and has easily called out 2 other members of BlankZ as the other 2 are spawning back in. Duck Motif is looking pretty solid here in trying to move on to the next match, hoping to find another win. But to me, it seems like Duck Motif is able to get a really solid hold, change the lead very briefly, and then BlankZ is just back again to take control away. And I'm wondering too, with the special usage that we're seeing from Duck Motif, it has frequently seemed like Red Shell is the last one left standing, and Benny is there to clean up the mess. So that is BlankZ once again holding forward towards Duck Motif spawn.
It's almost like Red Shell is maining that Zipcaster instead of the weapon itself. Obviously, we see him do good stuff with the main weapon as well, but that Zipcaster, man, Red Shell just popping off with that, creating so much space for their team and able to hold down areas, create openings as well with that. Now we're seeing members of BlankZ here trying to hold the zone. They are super close to actually KOing it with 3 members there on the zone. Where is everyone from Duck Motif? It looks like they were all coming back from spawn. Usually there's like at least one person there poking at the zone, but that was a great moment for BlankZ there. They got the members of Duck Motif away from the zone, and they just kind of 3 of them were sitting pretty there on the zone, bubbler and all.
Yeah, sitting pretty with bubbler and all in the middle of zone. That is BlankZ taking game number 3. So a 2-1 currently in the matchup as it stands right now. With BlankZ having a 2-win streak under their belts, they're looking to try to take the last win on Macomart here. And that would move us into the next round, therefore moving BlankZ onto the next round to reaching higher heights, as we said earlier. So still, once again, you have a lot of ledge play here. Duck Motif, it doesn't seem like has been utilizing the ledge play like we were previously predicting, especially with somebody like Red Shell using that Zipcaster on the Stamper. They are calling themselves out much more. So not really leaning towards sharking tactics, but more so leaning towards like the distraction tactic. At least to me, it seemed like those Zipcaster moves from last round were very much meant to like be a distraction and call members of BlankZ out from their hiding places. And so I'm wondering if the same story is going to happen on somewhere like Macomart, but also it's going to be like who it finds it more advantageous to be fighting on the stacks, because you have people that are very good at ledge gameplay. Okay, but what about multi-dimensional wall and sneaking around gameplay that you have to encounter on this stage on those stacks? So I'm wondering who is going to be more advantageous in a fight like that. And to me, it seems like BlankZ is kind of becoming that contender.
Yeah, we saw it in that last match. We didn't really get to talk about it, but the Tetra actually had a moment there. We saw their point of view where they were flanking around behind the E-leader from Duck Motif and another player, but they did get called out. But it seems like they're starting to get a little bit more brave with those flanks, with that Tetra in particular. Obviously a weapon that is known for flanking around like that. And on this map in particular, like you were saying, it's flank galore. You could be flanking up a wall. You could be flanking around the zone. On the flat ground, there's so many options that can happen here.
All right, and Rissa, as the crow flies, Red Shell is pulling out the Octobrush. The Stamper
there it is.
Not finding much success in those last 2 matches. So we're going to go with the old reliable, as it were, with the Octobrush for Duck Motif. And we're going to be switching that to that ZNF Charger too for Milk Tea. That's Kai'Sa once again. So again, maintaining the long range, but using the tri-strikes as well to maybe blockade the folks of BlankZ back into their spawn. But maybe so far not going to be doing that because there are two members of BlankZ kind of hanging out in no man's land in the middle of the zone. Finally, Duck Motif has got all of their cards in one place. Red Shell's able to break through. And you have the Kai'Sa getting set up there, and also the tri-strikes were kind of helpful in moving the members of BlankZ away from the zone. But still, no penalty in sight for BlankZ. And as 3 members finally go down, this could be where Duck Motif turns it around.
And I also want to highlight too for Duck Motif, Mr. Boss there on that slosher. That is a weapon that is fantastic for this map in particular. So I already saw that as they dropped down and got the zone. There's the cooler as well, going to be great for pushes along with Duck Motif. There goes that slosher, able to get a pick. But I mean, man, the way that slosher is able to poke over all the ledges on this map, it's great. It's great for Duck Motif here.
Yeah, it's a very aggressive tool indeed for Duck Motif. The tri-strikes as well, going to be clearing some area there for Duck Motif. Mr. Boss is going to opt to take the high ground, looking in for the assist. It seems like Kaden might have needed some help, but they were like, hey man, no I don't, I got this. Don't even worry about it, I got it, and now I'm going to start going and hanging out with Red Shell. And all 4 members of BlankZ are now called out, and not an ideal position as Duck Motif is eliminating the penalty that they have set in front of them. And still, there's no members of BlankZ making it out to the zone. Just a couple bombs here and a point sensor there to try to throw out here. And Red Shell is providing the blockade that they need to keep BlankZ out of the zoning area. Even with the Reef Slider, it didn't really change the story all that much. Duck Motif is now in the lead.
Yeah, they had the specials on BlankZ there perfectly to push in and get the zone. Use the Reef Slider, run. The Junior runs through that Reef Slider, use the Bubbler, but behind them to help them cap the zone. But you saw Duck Motif, they just backed up. There's a complete wipe onto BlankZ here as well. Duck Motif just backed up, let them use their specials, and then collapsed on top of those. They knew the game plan that BlankZ has going into this as they've played them in these previous matches. So they already knew, all right, let's just sit back. We already know they're going to use the Reef Slider. We know they're going to use that Bubbler. And then let's just collapse on them after that. Worked out beautifully for them. Duck Motif able to KO this match.
Well, there's something to be said about having your 3 quote-unquote more frontline players, so Red Shell, Mr. Boss, and Kaden. There's something to be said that those 3 can that trio can kind of intermix with each other of like who is going to pincer who, and then that Kai'Sa is pretty much powerful enough to handle themselves. Like, I'm sure like somebody is able to step back off of the front line and help Kai'Sa if they needed to, like if they had to pivot and change their decision. But to me, it seems like Kai'Sa's very much like, hey, I got it locked down back here. You 3 can go and do whatever you want. And that seems to be really working out for Duck Motif. And I mean, that Octobrush change, to me, it seemed like BlankZ was playing maybe a little further back than they had thought, because Red Shell, like we were saying, was up on those ledges. They were watching all of the entry points to see if they could try to catch BlankZ off guard. And it seemed like BlankZ was not being as forward this time, maybe trying to assess the offense a little bit more before throwing all of their cards down on the table. They were holding them really close to their chest this time. But it seems like maybe that change in composition now brings us to a game 5. Like we were thinking that story was going to end in that last matchup, but Duck Motif had something else to say. So now we're at Hagglefish Market. Now we're all the way over here on the opposite side of the graphic.
We made it there. 5. I know, and it's something to say too, like you were talking about, when you're all the way in game 4, you're used to playing against a specific comp, and then all of a sudden there's this switch up for half of the comp that you're playing against. The Chargers, the E-Leader switching from E-Leader to Charger, and then the Stamper switching over to Octobrush. You're not used to playing against this, and that can really get in your mind and kind of make you reevaluate what you've been doing previously. So maybe now that they know, okay, there's also these weapons we can be playing against, BlankZ will be able to move forward in this last match here, game 5, maybe a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, a little bit more prepared. Red Shell's going to still be sticking with the Octobrush, but they are going to be picking a new flavor of Octobrush. Just a lot. Red Shell has played a different weapon pretty much every match in this set, by the way. Similar flavor and play style of weapon, but just different specials in tow. They're going to opt to use the Kraken here. The jump in is going to happen, and they aren't going to really go for the jump, but they are going to go for the leftovers of Yushi over on the side there. So Duck Motif is making a strong case for switching over the lead with 2 specials in hand. The Wavebreaker with Kaden is going to probably come out as a defensive tool here in just a second. You have the Tri-Strikes ready to go for anybody that's breaking through the defensive wall, like the Reef Slider there, but Tri-Strikes are going to quickly cover that back up, but it's not going to be enough for BlankZ to come through and switch possession.
BlankZ able to push forward, get the zone there, and with their classic playstyle, that Reef Slider, and then the Bubbler after that. I like too that the Tetra player there, they use the Reef Slider and then they jump back just a little tiny bit to be back with their teammates, just to make sure that they can play together with them. So now they're able to not only get the zone, but get the lead as well. Use that cooler, and then with that cooler, hopefully be able to push forward as we're seeing them do now. Take down 2 members, 3 members of Duck Motif, and now this is that position where we've seen them in previously. Once they're in control of the zone, it makes it really difficult for Duck Motif to get back in when they're pushed forward this far.
Yeah, and you really have to be utilizing those side pieces to try to go forward. That was Kaden looking to try to take a fight there on the lower left side. But if you leave that unchecked, the Tetra is going to snowball through and take you out from the side. Now in the single digits for BlankZ. There's not a lot of coverage here, Mr. Boss. Kaden and Red Shell are all cascading down with help from Kaiza. That was real close, Rissa. Now 2 members down on the side of BlankZ. Duck Motif, I mean, they just have to hold it the entire time if they want to look for the win on this round.
They really do. They're going to have to figure out, okay, how do we approach this? Do we push forward and just act really aggressive, or do we just kind of stay safe, hold the zone as best we can, and play it a little bit more safe? You can see they're just trying to figure that out right now. Red Shell decides, guess what? I'm going to push forward and be aggressive. Uses this Kraken to kind of single out the members of BlankZ that are pushing down to get the zone. They recognized right when BlankZ was going to use their specials and push forward, and tried to use that Kraken to stop that. But BlankZ here kind of freely pushes forward as they started taking down members of Duck Motif, pushes forward, gets the zone, and now once again they're pushed up in this dangerous position.
Yeah, and it seems like Benny just kind of went unnoticed there, taking out Kai'Sa and then Red Shell jumping down in the process there. Benny has a solid hold on that left-hand side, and they're going to actually opt to let go of it to move forward into the spawning area of Duck Motif because it seemed like a safe landing at the time. Kaden and Kai'Sa now trying to push up out of the zoning area. There's really good coverage here on the bottom half in the court area by BlankZ. Kaden throwing out the Wavebreaker to clear something up. The Tri-Strikes are in tow. The control will be lost, but now the firefight really begins of who's going to take it back, and it's Duck Motif that is the successor. BlankZ is going to have to be backing off here as members are pincering each other into the different corners and forcing them to be pushed back. But now, to me, it seems that Duck Motif, in order for this to be successful as we round up the last minute of the game, we have to be building special, holding tight to positions here, and like you said, not overextending, not pushing ourselves too far forward. But you know what? Red Shell actually plays his own game, so it doesn't really matter if you're Red Shell.
Yeah, Red Shell said, guess what? I'm going to push forward, be aggressive, use this Kraken. Again, very similar situation to what we saw from the previous push that BlankZ was getting ready. Now the zone is in limbo as we see it painted in both colors. Finally, BlankZ there is able to paint the zone. But man, as we're headed into the last 45 seconds of this match, this is so chaotic. I really think anything can happen here because both teams have really felt like they've each gotten a feel for how to play against each other on this match. So I really don't know what's going to happen headed into the last 30 seconds of this.
Yeah, they got to be super careful about where that penalty is going to stand. Like, you really have to risk assess when the big play is going to happen because you have to keep reinitiating that penalty. So if you didn't see it before, BlankZ had like 23 seconds left on their penalty before Duck Motif took the zone back. When they took the zone back, it added 25 points back onto the penalty. So now they have technically 46 seconds to try to change something here. And 46 plus 1 seconds to do something here. But the game timer is not going to allow for much space to do much else. So that is BlankZ taking us in a 3-2 against Duck Motif as we move on into the second round. BlankZ is finding great success in their first round of the day.
Yeah, that was great for BlankZ there. They, even though that that fourth match, once Duck Motif switched their weapons up and kind of made them reevaluate how they wanted to play against Duck Motif, and in that game 5, BlankZ really had it down and they really recognized how to approach that a lot better.
Right, and I appreciate that BlankZ maybe has some homework to do, because consistently you had Red Shell breaking in to their spawning area or trying to topple the defense with the Kraken. So kind of assessing how do we do preventative measures to stop something like that happening in the future. But Duck Motif, it would seem to me that they had their own strategy and game used against them, to where in the earlier rounds, Duck Motif was really locking in those last few seconds, and when the scoring got really close together with BlankZ. But then we saw BlankZ doing that in this game 5. We saw them really locking it down, coming together, and holding fast with their 1 point left with their multiple colored penalty that they had to keep reinitiating and eliminating. So putting themselves in a really good spot to play the long game. Really good flip of the story, if you will. It's like the characters changed. The characters changed their roles as the match went on.